Produced by Podcast Architects.
Okay, welcome back to Hit the Gas. I'm joined by guest Ben Wiggins, founder and CEO of Podcast Architects. So today we're going to be talking about kind of like how the company got started, the kind of the story of how you met Cullen. He's kind of like the second in command. I just wanted to kind of get the story of what all happened. So when did you first meet Cullen?
Well, I first met Cullen in August of 2021, and I was working at my office, and there's no, the way this story starts is on the floor, on the first floor of the Galleria Village building where my office is, there are no bathrooms. And it's a thing, I think they just don't want people walking in off the street to go to the bathroom.
Right.
And so you have to go up to the second floor. So I'm walking across the lobby to use the restroom, and this young man is in the lobby at the elevator, and he turns to me as I'm walking across, and he says, I think I might have said, "Hey, can I help you? Can I help you find anything?" He might have been looking at the directory, and he said, "Yeah, do you know how to get to Fundamental Wealth Advisors?" And I said, "Yeah, they're up on 8. And he said, and as I'm going about my way and on the way up to the stairs, he says, kind of to the room, like not really to me, but sort of to me, he says, I'm actually just looking for a job. I'm here in the building trying to learn more about finance, and I'm, just here passing out my resume." And I kind of turned back and looked at him and said, "That's good, man. Like that's powerful. Like I admire your moxie." Then I hope it works out for you. Yeah. I hope you're able to find a job with them or with somebody else. And you probably will, because people are looking for guys like you. And then, so I go up to the bathroom, do my business. I'm washing my hands. And I look up at myself in the mirror and I think, "You idiot, go find that guy." That's the type of person you're looking for. That's founder mentality right there. The person who's like just in a building, with a bunch of strange businesses, nobody they know, and they're just passing out resumes trying to get a job.
Right.
That's the guy you want. That's the person you want. So I go up to the wealth management company on the 8th floor, some dear friends working with them. Sorry, I stole Cullen from you. But I walk in and I say, "Hey, was there a guy up here just passing out resumes?" And the woman at the front desk says, "Yes." And I said, "Could I just look at his resume?" And she looks back at me and kind of gets this deer in headlight look, and she says, "I think that's legal." And I said, "Yeah, would just like to look at, I want to give him a call." And she said, "Okay." So she goes in the back and brings the resume out, puts it on the desk, and I read his number off the front of it. So I call his number and I say, "Hey, is this the guy? Are you the guy that was in the Galleria building passing out resumes?" And he said, "Yeah." And I said, "Are you still in the area?" And he said, "Well, I'm still in the building, if that's what you mean." And I said, "That is exactly what I mean. I'll meet you on the first floor. Let's go for a walk. I'm the guy you met in the lobby." And he said, "Okay." So we took a lap around the building, and I liked the vibe from him. And there have been a bunch of people that I've gotten a really good vibe from.
Sure.
But if you're hiring people that you get that vibe from, some of them are not going to work out.
Right.
But some of them are going to work out amazing. And he has worked out amazing. And the fun little coda to that story is when I moved to LA, I actually went around and passed out my resume. And I actually got thrown out of 20th Century Fox.
Wow.
I said, I went and I brought in a resume, set it on the desk. And the guy, very nice African-American gentleman, said to me, "Can I help you?" And I said, "I'm just looking for a job." And he said, "Yes, I mean, so are 1,000 other people. I got a stack of resumes this high in the back. I can take this, but you're not going to hear from us." And I said, "Could I just talk to somebody? Could I just have like a brief 5-minute interview with somebody?" He said, I'm sorry, this is 20th Century Fox. Like we have hundreds of people through the door every day who are not only capable and looking for a job, but also went to USC Film School or UCLA Film School or, or AFI or NYU, and they have endorsements from George Lucas or Steven Spielberg. So, so as much as I hate to say it, I'm actually going to have to ask you to leave.
Wow. That's so heart crushing.
But it's a great story.
Right.
And,
sure.
and it was a good lesson for me, which was the relationships matter. And this is not, and I never forgot, how big it felt to try and scale that wall and to meet other people. When I meet someone else, like when someone applies for a job on our website, you can apply for jobs on our website. And when someone does that out of the blue, I always follow up with them. We may not hire them, but that's the kind of person that I want to talk to. Like that, there are other Cullens out there.
Right.
And if we can find them, there's other Jakes out there, and nobody exactly like you, but there are other people that are going to bring the same kind of mentality and values that the two of you bring to the table. And there's obviously many other people we work with that are also like frighteningly capable. Right. And I want to find more of them.
Absolutely.
I want to find more of you. And that is how we can build something truly great.
Absolutely. Yeah, it's all part of the team. Okay, so you meet Cullen, right? Yeah. And you have this, epiphany in the bathroom. And
The Epiphany in the Bathroom. That's the title of this episode, by the way.
Sure, absolutely. Sounds good.
The Epiphany in the Bathroom.
Where do you go from there? You say, okay, hey, I got this thing, and it's just you at this point, right?
No. So we had, at that time it was all contractors still, because we still didn't know what the jobs were exactly. But we had 7 or 8 people working for us at that point. My former partner, Kyle Ackerman, and I were running the company at that point. And we had another half a dozen students that were working with us at that time. But
so you were already a little bit established, but I feel like everything from what I've heard so far, and I haven't been with y'all a super long time, but things kind of really started to feel like they were getting in place after Cullen came along.
Well, that's largely fair, but not completely fair. I do think that things took a significant step forward after Cullen got here. But there have been a bunch of other people who have contributed to our growth and our success in a really meaningful way. I think we had pretty good growth, I think, throughout 2021, and it's always this, it's big ups, and then it's 3 steps forward and then 1 step back, and then 2 steps forward and then 2 steps back, and then hiring Cullen was definitely a really important step for us.
So as a business owner, what do you think the first step to start your own business is?
That's a great question. And I think it is more important to have a great market than it is to have a great idea. And I think that entrepreneurial education has consistently sold short the value of market discovery, customer development, customer discovery, all of those things. I learned those things from a local growth consultant named Steve Tinkle. And I believe that if I had this tool when I was 25, that the course of my career would look pretty different. It was kind of a eureka moment for me, learning customer discovery, and as I've mentioned to you previously, people started asking us when I was working with the Maze Mastercast about, hey, we like your show. Would you help us get ours started? So we kind of cheated in that we already knew there was a market there. But that's what to look for. When you're thinking about starting a business. I think that it should be much less about, oh, I have this amazing idea and it's going to go change. Maybe your great idea will change the world. But what will really change the world is if you can find a compelling need that exists in the market that you can meet in a way that nobody else can. That's the key to it. And Naval Ravikant says, become the best in the world at what you do. Keep refining what you do until this is true. And at Podcast Architects, we are going to be the best in the world at something. I think that something is running an end-to-end, full-service podcasting service, doing, planning and brand compliance and all of that stuff up front, to the booking and pre-production and pre-calls, to the production and the post-production, which a lot of people are good at. Post-production and post are not things that we're going to be the best in the world at just on their own. Mm-hmm. But what we can do is layer on all those other things, the back end, the distribution, the promotion, the conversions. And when you put all of that together, that is something that we can be the best in the world at, I believe. And if it turns out we can't be the best in the world with that, then we're going to keep refining until we find something that we can be numero uno, clearly the best.
That's awesome. That's great.
But I think learning to ask the right questions, the only good book, Lean Entrepreneurship talks about customer development sometimes. And the main message is always get out of the building. And what that means is you spend all this time tinkering with the product to make it amazing, but you don't actually know if it's meeting the market need. Well, for an extrovert like myself, I'm out of the building already.
Right.
The challenge I need to take is get into the building and spend more time with the service and the product and learn kind of what makes that tick. And, actually doing the work is more challenging for me than having the conversations. But
that makes sense.
But most of that literature, all right, so we're out of the building. Now what do we do?
Sure.
And so the only good book I've really ever read on customer discovery and customer development is called The Mom Test by Rob Fitzpatrick. And that one actually talks about like how people are trying to protect your feelings. And so they're going to tell you your business is a great idea, even when it's a terrible idea. And so that necessity is critical when you're thinking about starting a business. I also would counsel people to, as much as possible, to de-risk the process of starting a business by finding, like, I'm a big believer in service-based businesses. Now, obviously, products have their place, sure. But products are usually much higher capital investment up front. And if you have developed a successful business before, it's much easier to get capital. But for me, service just makes sense because I'm a salesperson more than I'm a marketing person. And it's just, you can bootstrap the whole thing from day one. Product, it's really hard to do that unless you either have investors or you have a lot of money yourself.
Okay.
So growing it organically, I think, is easier for a service-based business.
That makes more sense. Yeah, because you don't need, like you said, you don't need a whole lot of product at the beginning to get going.
The other side of that coin is at the other end of it, if you're thinking about getting acquired as a business, product businesses usually get higher multiples.
Okay, that makes sense.
Yeah.
Is there anything that kind of inspired you? Like, I know that we kind of talked about motivation in previous episodes, but I think that, so someone that inspires me is kind of like my dad, and he had a really rough childhood growing up, and then he started his own family and did his own thing, and so that that kind of inspired me. But is there anything like that for you?
Oh, I mean, there are many people like that. My dad inspires me too. All of my parents, my dad and stepmom, my mom and stepdad, all of my parents are inspirational to me. My wife and kids inspire me. But other people that I look up to, I have some of my heroes are pretty stereotypical and traditional, superheroes, sure. Like Superman. I'm more of a Superman guy than a Batman guy.
That makes more sense.
But and then, athlete heroes, I look up to, to Tom Brady or LeBron the same way a lot of people probably do. I'm a particular admirer of people who came from, like the undrafted Hall of Famer. That kind of story really speaks. A career like Ben Wallace in the NBA, so to go from undrafted to being in the Hall of Fame. That's something that I find particularly compelling. I started my college football career as a walk-on, an uninvited walk-on from the track team. I was recruited for a track scholarship, and then I walked onto the football team and eventually became a 2-year starter. So the idea of being underestimated and having to earn your way and to be thought of as less than, despite my background and despite the privilege that I come from. That's a feeling I'm familiar with. And so the stories that inspire, I love an underdog story, but I think the way that the underdog story is usually told is, here's how the underdog like immediately won a title or won a championship, and not about the 7 years that it took to get there or the 20 years that it took to get there. And so I think I'm also a big believer in, I think of it as empire building.
Okay.
The idea that Rome wasn't built in a day,
Right.
and that if you just take one step forward every day and be patient, eventually you'll find your road and you'll find your success. And the idea is just keep chopping wood.
Okay, that's awesome. Yeah, that really makes sense. What do you think the future of podcasting is?
That's a good question too. If you had asked me a year ago, I would have said podcasting is eventually going to, it's going to branch into the metaverse, AI, augmented reality, VR. Sorry, not AI, AR,
Okay.
augmented reality, virtual reality, that kind of thing.
Gotcha.
Now the hot thing is generative AI.
Yeah.
Chat GPT, all of that sort of thing. And another thing that was really hot a year and a half ago and is not hot at all right now is blockchain and cryptocurrency
Right,
and things like that. So sometimes I'm wrong about the direction that I think things are going. Right now, I am probably less hopeful about the immediate benefits of AI than some people are. I think there are, and some things also get called AI when they're actually not. They're not deep learning. They're
Right.
not. It's not an algorithm that is actually processing and taking on new information.
Right.
That's teaching itself new stuff. But I do think generative AI is a big deal and something to pay attention to. And so, where is podcasting going? I think that services like ours are going to become more important. I do think that podcasting in 10 or 15 years is going to be table stakes for owning a business. It's just going to be part, like you have to have a podcast or you don't have a business.
Right.
Kind of like in 1998, for your time, perhaps.
Definitely.
But in 1998, you didn't have to have a website to own a business. And now you do. If you don't have a website, you just don't have a business.
Right.
I do believe at some point storytelling is important enough. Success stories are important enough that having a podcast, and I would even say a video podcast, is going to be table stakes for owning a business.
That makes sense.
But what else is going to happen? I think that I'm not breaking news here, but the technology is going to continue to improve. I think that there will probably be a period of disillusionment, and maybe we're already there with podcasts in terms of, people saying, oh, everybody has one. The market's way too saturated. Well, the market was way too saturated with websites in 1998, and now there are, 1,000 times as many websites as there were in 1998. Don't fact check me on that. I'm sure I'm exaggerating. But yeah, so I think that it's going to continue to become more important because nothing's more powerful than story.
That is a good point. Yes, sir. Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, I was talking with you the other day about this, and, I think companies kind of like Netflix or Hulu, they might be in big trouble because, I would rather sit and listen to two guys talk about a subject that I'm interested in for 2 hours than watch a $1 billion production that Netflix produces. There's a time and a place for everything, but in general, I'd rather listen to a podcast.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, and everybody's got their thing. Content I think is going to continue fragmenting. There are thousands of shows now instead of 24 shows or even 3 shows like there were back in the 40s and 50s. There's three networks. There's 3 shows. They all have content through the day, but there's just not a ton of stuff out there.
Yeah.
Now, stuff is so targeted. You can find stuff that is really oriented to you. And I think the good news for us as consumers is you have so many choices, and there's, you can decide exactly what you like and what shows are to your taste and what podcasts are to your tastes, and do you want narrative content, or do you want educational content, or do you want just stuff that makes you laugh?
Sure.
That choice is everywhere.
It's a powerful it's definitely a very powerful way to advertise. I mean, I think a lot of, like you were saying, like a lot of companies are just going to start picking this up. I mean, someone said everyone and their mom has a podcast, and I was like, yeah, my mom has a podcast.
Yeah,
so I mean,
that's right.
it's not a bad thing. I don't know why everyone's kind of clowning on it in a way, but
yeah, I'm kind of mystified by it too. I think when there's a new technology, I think sometimes in anything, whether it's crypto or the metaverse or AI or whatever, like you get a certain contingent of true believers that's all they want to talk about all the time, and it turns into a meme. But overall, I think that all of those things have some value to add, and exactly what that looks like, well, time will tell.
Absolutely. Well, that just about wraps it up. Thank you for watching this week's episode of Hit the Gas. Please visit our website, podconsulting.co, or click the link in the description. And join us again very soon. Thank you very much.
Produced by Podcast Architects.